Hey, welcome to Living Ardently. We're your hosts. I'm Adrian.
Hey, I'm Steve.
And we are your hosts for Living Ardently. We have a great guest for you today, an awesome person that I met through Steve. And I'm really excited to introduce to you guys and kind of this entire podcast. So tune in and like we always say, let's get into it. So today's guest is a fellow Filipino, a very motivational speaker, and his bio on Instagram says he helps people break unhealthy cycles by developing a growth mindset. You can follow him at Bro Rhy, that's BRORHY _ and the Inspiration Guy on Instagram. Please welcome our guest, Bro Rhy.
Yo, what's going on? Yeah, Living Ardently fam. What up, y'all? What up? What's up, everyone?
Thanks, brother, for coming on. We are really excited to have you guys. Like I said, I actually was introduced to you through Steve from the Facebook group, the Catholic Media Squad, I think it was.
That's right.
The title.
Yeah.
So why don't you tell me guys how you guys met?
So this is kind of a funny story because this is a story of humility, growing into friendship and brotherhood. But I would see Bro Rhy's content on Instagram and Facebook and just kind of hate from afar sort of thing. I don't know what's going on with my camera. It's bugging out right now. It's turning all sorts of colors. But as long as the audio is crispy, that's all that matters.
Right.
Bro, whenever good things try to happen, there's always that mess up with the frequency. So we know the Holy Spirit's got the higher frequency. Amen. Let's go.
Amen. Let's go.
So I would see what Bro Rhy was doing and just kind of hating on it from afar and talking smack about his content. And one day I was like, you know what? Let me listen to what this guy's got to say. And I heard his story and I was so humbled and impressed. And man, I spent time just being jealous and envious of seeing what he's able to do and being like, oh, I want to do that, blah blah blah. So I sent him a message one day and I was like, hey bro, I just want to let you know I appreciate what you do. You're a real dude. You got real faith. I see realize what you realize, and I'm sure Bro Rhy will share with us a little bit about that. But I was like, yeah, I just been hating for a while and I just want to apologize and say what's up. So he hit me back and we actually got on a live Zoom, kind of just chopping it up for the world to see on Facebook. And then after that, it's been, just awesome opportunities to grow in ministry, collaborate. So that's how I got to know Bro Rhy. I mean, is there anything else you would add to that?
Yeah. There's definitely a couple pieces that I remember, which is true. You reached out to me and I was like, all right, who is this dude? Bosco Beats. And I was, Stephen Aguino. And of course, naturally, right, we go to the Google, we go to the Instagram search, and I just started kind of looking up your work. And then I even seen, how you had discernment in your past. And I was like, okay, this guy's reaching out. And I think one of the questions you had asked was about how I was getting gigs or about something around gigs and opportunities. And it came from a place where I felt like, yo, if I can just help anybody out in any way that I can, because people have helped me out, I was like, I'm gonna do it. And Bosco really stuck out to me because when I did a gig in LA, my room was the Don Bosco room. And I remember you had hit me up and said, hey, that's my, that was the order and all these different things that you had shared with me. And so just naturally the conversation felt authentic. And so when you reached out to me and I was like, look, if it wasn't for the people who laced me up, if it wasn't for the people who believed in me, gave me a shot, or even shared, and paid it forward with me, who am I if I'm not willing to do the same? Now, believe me, there's been a lot of people, and there still are people that will hit me up and message me, and I'll give what I can. But I've also learned in this, we have to call it an industry. In this work, there is, boundaries. And so I started thinking of it more as yo, it has to be equal sacrifice, and it has to be mutually beneficial in the sense that we can add on to each other. And so that was kind of how. And then when I started seeing what you did with media, and when I started seeing, all the work you're doing, and I think there was in the Catholic group, there was that freestyle. Remember there was that one freestyle and you did one from from New York, from the Bronx, and everyone's kind of representing their different coasts. And what was the challenge? Remember, it was a challenge
Yeah,
that everybody was doing. I couldn't remember what it was, and it
I
was
think that was
like,
on the Catholic Hip Hop Forum or something like that.
and they had like yeah, and they were like tagging people. And then I remember doing mine with a Tupac beat,
Mhm.
some West
Ooh.
Coast beat. But anyways, it was like I started feeling your vibe there in terms of your content as well. And then that's when basically I was like, you know what would it hurt just to connect with another brother in the faith, another person in the vineyard, with similar styles, similar flavor, and more importantly, let's
Mm.
just connect, right? Because that's what we're called to do. So you reached out, and in my own humility as well, right? Just remembering it's not about me, it's about those I serve. If there
Mm.
was anything I could do to help get your message and get you out there, and again, we're still working on collaboration. So yeah, that definitely was crazy because all three of us, well, I've never met either of you physically, and I
Yeah.
remember that you hit me up and said, "Are you gonna go to NCYC?"
Mhm.
And I was like, kind of butthurt because I was last year. I was here in Georgia, but that wasn't, you know,
Yeah.
I didn't have any reason to go, like in terms of like speaking or doing music. And so you're like
Yeah.
hitting me up, "Hey bro, you gonna be out here? If so, come through." And I was like, oh, I was like you know, I got a little jealous for myself. I told my wife, I was like, "Man, babe, one day, one day."
Okay.
And she's like, "You will." But
Okay.
even in that, right, like that
Mm-hmm.
same kind of envy that of course we're always taught not to have, but just that natural, like, yo,
Mm-hmm.
like if a brother of mine is doing something, I definitely want to see what I can do as well, right? And I want to bring my gifts to the world also. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's definitely exciting the way God is working through us, bro.
For sure.
That's awesome. It's so cool to see how, like, all three of us haven't met. Oh no, I've met Steve in person once ever,
Mhm.
and it was at NCCYM,
Yeah.
and that was like, but we had already met then. But like the connection through the internet is incredible. And when I see other youth ministers like telling kids to get off the internet, I'm like, no, they don't got to get off the internet. They don't got to get off of social media per se, but they just got to curate what they're putting in,
Mhm.
what they're feeding in. They got to follow the right people and the right accounts that are going to help them, get closer to Christ or become better personally. And so that's
Yeah,
what I do with my
yeah.
teens. I'm like, hey, this is the people you should follow. I give them a list and I update it like often, and hopefully, they do. And if they're on Instagram already, might as well, meet them where they're at. And there's a lot of accounts out there that do that well. And so just like all of us kind of met through the social media, it's because we were in the right places. And that's awesome. I love that. So kind of what I want to do at the beginning, like, we used to do like these rapid fire questions in the beginning to kind of break the ice, but we're gonna save the kind of game breaking ice thing. We're gonna save that for the end now. We're just gonna get straight into it. Tell me a little bit about your faith background, and how, like, starting from the beginning up to now. You don't have to get super detailed, but just kind of like an overall
Yeah, no,
idea.
absolutely. So I consider myself cradle to grave Catholic. Born and raised Catholic my whole life. Born and raised in Vallejo, California. Shout out to
Let's
all my
go.
faith family in the 707. Say it backwards. But growing up, going through
707.
the motions. Yeah, going through the motions, as everyone knows in the Catholic faith, right? The kneel, sit, stand, pray. All the things that we learned, right? And I had put a post on Instagram just recently, like why I'm thankful. Actually, last Friday, Flashback Friday, it was like why I'm thankful for going through those motions, right? Because it was the same motions that now have so much more meaning now in my life that allow me to really embrace the Catholic faith. So all that to say, up until I went to St. Vincent's in Vallejo and then St. Basil's where I started getting my sacraments. But again, I wasn't fully aware of the faith. I wasn't fully informed. I mean, we still all have a lot of work to do, but I just, wasn't living the life. Monday through Saturday, went to CCD when it was called CCD back in the days. Shout out Confraternity of Christian Doctrine. And then my confirmation retreat was crazy because growing up, in a family where my parents divorced at 3 months old. So I had a stepdad, my Saint Joseph, and I had, these people in my life that as the only child, like trying to just, look out for me. And growing up in Vallejo, not in the best circumstances, church wasn't a high priority in the circles that I was in. So going into my confirmation class, you can already tell, like, dude, for real, it's like, what is this all about? For me, my mom, love my mom 100, but I went to what I always tell people is I went to the sacrament classes until second grade, got my first communion and reconciliation. And then like from second grade until eighth, ninth grade, there was no faith formation. There was no religious education. There was still mass every Sunday, faithfully.
Yeah.
But there wasn't Sunday school. And then confirmation came. My mom was like, you got to do this. And I was like, why? And of course, I was rebellious. I was defiant. My mindset and my attitude was not about the Lord. So until in confirmation, I just, again, I was there for, to see the girls from the public school, right? To be the top dog, like, it's North Vallejo in the building, like acting a fool, like trying to be hardcore, trying to be tough, thinking that this was school. And it wasn't until my confirmation retreat. There was a couple different events prior to my confirmation retreat that kind of woke me up to the faith, right? There was and I'll just share this quick story. Rest in peace, Chuck Durley. He was one of my, confirmation teachers or discipleship teachers. And I remember there was a Saturday night, big news, big headline on the news, gang violence. There was this kid who got, there was a gang fight, and this kid got rammed into a wall. Oh, like they just took the car, rammed him into a wall, died instantly. Wow. And there were some family members or relatives of this kid in this gang in my class. And so Chuck, now he came from New York, originally from New York, from New York, real tall, big African-American dude. And I'm just like, he brings out the newspaper and he's like, starts reading the headlines. He says the young man's name who passed away. And I'm like, is this dude really going there? Doesn't he know we have, family members of that person in this room? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden, tears, people start crying, tears everywhere. People have to leave the room because they don't want to hear the story. And he's reading the story. And I'm like, it caught my attention. I'm like, what is this dude doing? This dude's, off the hook. And then he closes the paper and he says, hey, y'all, if we don't start taking God seriously, if we don't start taking our faith seriously, then this stuff is going to keep happening. And that's when I was like, wow, okay, maybe this church thing, maybe this God thing, maybe I'm here for a reason. Cause I wasn't trying to get caught up in all that, right? Cause I was so close to it. Fast forward. So I said, all right, let me pay more attention. And my confirmation teacher again is another, inspiration in my life who we'll talk about a little bit later, but confirmation retreat came and bro, y'all know we in the tabernacle having that moment, just, we just had this deep talk, the encounter talk. And it was just like, all right, I'm just reflecting on my life, who I am, where I'm at, what I want to be, thinking about my family situation, my relationships with, my stepdad, my biological father, and all that kind of stuff. As a 14-year-old, you can just imagine, what it was like identity wise and not realizing when I realized that, I'm a son of God, I'm a child of God, and he got me. And so it was in that moment where, I just, of course, had my moments, all the different cries. And there was a girl in the background, 10-year-old. Her name was Michelle. She was with her dad. Filipinos, they big on, the dad playing the guitar, the little girl singing. That was kind of the culture in our ministry back in those days, where that's all it took was just, and the vocalist singing her heart out, and she sang Power of Your Love. So you can imagine what this 10-year-old beautiful angelic voice did to the room with the presence of Christ in front of us in the tabernacle in that moment. And that was it. That's when I said, you know what? There's a better way. And so from that day on, of course, things didn't just change overnight. I was still in the same environment, still in the same circle, still have the same friends. I mean, my family's not changing in terms of the stuff that all my family was involved in, but I just knew there was a better way. I just knew in my heart the way that my friends or people around me were treating people, the way they were living their life, wasn't who I wanted to be. And it turned out that the weekend of the retreat was the weekend before I was supposed to actually get jumped into the family gang.
Mm.
Mm.
So God's timing,
Interesting.
right? God's
Right.
timing. Um,
Wow.
and so I chose Christ. I still choose Christ, but of course, the more you choose Christ, the bigger is the target is on your back, right? So he's always, someone else is always trying to work hard to pull you down. And so from there, I, went after we all got confirmed. We wanted to come back to church, and we started helping out at Sunday school. Then we started facilitating the retreats. We started helping out summer retreats. I got involved with youth ministry, and just
Mm.
all the different ways that we could serve our church as a youth group
Mm-hmm.
is where I wanted to be. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I sacrificed parties, going out to, to go to the rosaries on Friday night with,
Yeah.
the eating after the meeting, and, all the different events
Mm-hmm.
and the preparations that we had to do for fundraisers for church. Like, a lot of sacrifice. Not to say that I didn't go to any parties, because I ended up being a DJ in high school for many years. So doing, and I wasn't spending K love, right? So there was always that struggle of secular world, God's world, and how,
Mm-hmm.
what does that look like in finding the right balance?
Right.
Because a big part of me was like, look, I'm not gonna not be who I am, but I still got to remember whose I am. And I think that was the biggest struggle in my identity. Was it like, can I still be all in for Christ, but still hang out with all of my friends and family, and still be around things that maybe I don't necessarily believe in and agree with,
Right.
but still be maybe a beacon of light or a representation of hope. And then there were times that I failed too, right? The same Paul all day. Like, so
Yeah.
many times that I was persecuted into faith just by my own actions as a high schooler, even after this confirmation retreat. But see, the cool thing about the retreat is that it was a reminder, like, yo, there's a better way. So anytime I feel myself slipping, the vices or the temptations start to come back around. And if I haven't
Yeah.
been if I haven't been active in the sacraments, if I haven't, received my Jesus lately, or had that fresh start through reconciliation, if like I missed any of those things, which I have so much more meaning for me now,
Yeah.
then I just always remember that first encounter that I can remember, because we all get it at baptism. Like, that's a given. We get the indelible mark, but as infants, as babies, we don't personally remember it, right? So that's why I always say it was my first time that I personally remember encountering Christ in my heart. So fast forward, went to college, so I was involved in ministry, helping out, volunteering, confirmation teaching, went to SF State, again, just acting a fool, just living of the world, trying to be this hip hop mogul, P Diddy. Like, I was so into like all the hip hop folks back then, and I just wanted
Yeah.
to be like this boss, baller, millionaire, like all about secular stuff, nothing with Christ, nothing with God. And of course, we see how that ended up. It didn't work out, so I ended up stopped going to school at SF State, took some time off. And then I ended up working at Napa State Hospital. There was a program to be a psychiatric technician. So I was doing medications, treatments, all of that for mental health. I did that for 11 years. And at the same time is when I said, you know what, I got to get back with the church. I got to start serving again. My wife and I got married, same church, same Basils in Vallejo. But then we moved to Fairfield, the next city up, Our Lady of Mount Carmel. So it was a Carmelite parish. And that's when we, as one, started a whole new like faith chapter. And then that's when I said, okay, where's the youth ministry? What's the confirmation program like? I need to plug back in, because in those 2 years that I was away from Christ, honestly, like, those were the years that I was the most lost. Those were the years that, I was chasing the money, working overtime at the hospital, just grinding. And I'm thankful because working at the hospital did so much for my wife and I. Like, we got to travel, see the world, but at what cost, right? They're offering mass at church. I mean, they're offering mass at the hospital on Sundays, and I was still making an excuse why I couldn't go to mass. So I lost connection for a year and a half, 2 years, and then I was at my most unhealthiest point of my life. I was like 350 pounds.
Oh wow.
So, like, yes, I'm making money, but look at everything else in my life that's falling apart. And that's when I said, I got to figure this out. So started volunteering. A year after volunteering at Our Lady of Mount Carmel, got the opportunity to be the youth minister there. So, and while I was teaching confirmation at the same time, so I was volunteering as a catechist, one day a week. And then we also ran the youth ministry program for 10 years. And I
Wow.
just, yeah, just transitioned out of that 10 years, a year and a half ago. So it was definitely, again, and then within that, people were like, hey, can you share a talk at this church or at this church? And the diocese would have their confirmation events. And I've always had a heart for confirmation retreats, conferences, because that's, where
Where you
my
have it.
life shifted. That's where I got woke for the Lord.
Yeah.
And so to the Diocese of Sacramento, to my home diocese, I was always like, whatever you need. So I started as a volunteer, helping kids get into the arena, helping youth ministers find their sections to sit at, signing people in. There was like no job too little. and then the next year they were like, hey, can you help run a physical activity like during the break and do some exercising because we know you're into fitness. And then I was like, sure, no problem, right? And this, I'll just volunteer. And then the next year I was like, hey, we heard you have a powerful story. Would you mind just sharing it in the first 5 or 10 minutes on stage, before we start? And it was before Katie McGrady or Katie Prejean, before Mike Potan. And 2016, it was like, yo, who is this guy? And then from there, just using the gift and just really serving with a faithful heart is all I wanted to do.
That's awesome.
There was no intention of it being what it is today and where it's going. But again, how do you make God laugh?
Yeah.
Just tell him your plan.
Rhy, I got to ask you a question. So you kind of have an incredible journey of, growing up in Vallejo, and now, your life is moving in a different way, and you've had just small opportunities every single step, and your eyes were open to it. And so for the moments that they kind of, were closed off, you had a chance to like kind of reopen your eyes, and as you said, get woke with the Lord and things like that. But, ministry is a challenge because, a lot of times ministry there's a lot of it, and a lot of times there's a little of it. But what would you say, kind of being where you're at now and thinking of like ministry as a career, what's one thing that you wish you had known at the beginning, like when you first started beginning with ministry, for where you're at now?
So definitely. I think one thing that I would have probably done differently back then when I first started really was because, again, your gift. People tell you what your gift are. Like for the most part, like, what you're passionate about. So that's not what's in question here. But the question is, how far are you really wanting to take it? And what are you willing to sacrifice to get there? And how are you willing to grow? And I share these three things in the sense that if I wanted to become international, right, then let me start with the end in mind. And then from there, work backwards. I can't, you can dream alone, but you can't grow alone. So then it would be like, okay, well, what team do I need to put together? And it's not a team of me's, because if you just put a whole bunch of me's in the room, that's not going to get us anywhere, because we need to be, more organized. We need to have the business sense. We need to have the structure. And most importantly, there has to be a system in place.
Right.
So if you rewind the clock back to 2016, when the opportunity came, I probably would have sat down with folks who not only been in the industry, but who are good at systems and processes, and figured out, look, here's my gift, here's the goal. What system or process, do you recommend? And obviously everyone's process, like I said earlier, in a video I made, Trust the Process, everyone's process is going to be different. But if you don't even have a process or a system in place, then you really don't have any way to measure your growth.
Right.
And so again, right, like I think if I would have learned a little bit more about what is a system I can put in place, what is the end goal, and more importantly, if this is really where I want to go, and this is this and what it's going to take, am I willing to sacrifice and grow with that? Right? Am I willing to sacrifice and grow with that? Because I think, when we have an opportunity and we speak, we lead a retreat, give a talk, and we impact lives, or people see the God in us, that sometimes blows our head up to the point where it's like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and then we see
Mm-hmm.
other people who are doing it. But if you compare your day one to someone's day 100 or day
Mm-hmm.
1000, you're gonna be in trouble real quick.
That's
So
so
if you're
true.
not good with money, if you're not good with finances, if you're not good with bookkeeping, if you're not good with contracts, if you're not good with, this having a system in place, I don't care how good or great your gift is, it's only gonna go so far.
Right.
So now I'm in a place where I'm like, all right, now I'm building a team. Now,
Mm-hmm.
from the back end, from the financial side of it, the bookkeeping, the CPA, to organizing my days, like all those different things, to the writers, to the video editors, the podcast, like all those different places or pieces, of course, come in time. But sitting with someone who can help you plan that out,
Mm-hmm.
and you'll know when that time comes, like, okay, now we need an editor,
Right.
or
Mm-hmm.
now we need to, like, we're not going to get it all in the beginning. And so my
Mm-hmm.
mindset was, oh, just do it all. You got it.
Mm-hmm.
You're Bro Rhy. Come on, bring that fire, bring that heat. So I was putting a lot of that energy on all these other areas of the business side of it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
of course, this is what feeds my family. I left the hospital, full-time job. This wasn't a side thing anymore, right? And I think I
Mm-hmm.
kind of shy away from using that word side thing, because
It's not a
work for the
side
Lord
thing. It's a
shouldn't be a
Rhy
side thing.
thing.
You're right. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, bro, hopefully that answers your question. But it's more business oriented, and just understanding like the
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice. There has to be a system, and we have to know what is our end game here, because if we don't have
Mm-hmm.
any of those things in mind in the beginning, and we can't face that, it's not going to go anywhere quick.
Right.
So just for some clarification, you're no longer just you're full time with just doing your Bro Rhy, your ministry, right?
Yep. So I as of after I left, or not after my transition out of the parish youth ministry position,
Mm-hmm.
um, I became a full 1099 contractor. So I do two main types of, I speak, lead retreats. We could design retreats from start to finish, confirmation, adult, parents, all ages, just because that's kind of the range, from youth all the way to parents. And
Yeah.
outside of, after I left Napa, or actually before I left Napa, I was introduced to a social emotional learning program, a
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit called Soul Shop. And we're, it's all about mental health and teaching young people, what mental health is, teaching them
Wow.
about their social and emotional learning needs, right? And that's a whole
Yeah.
nother area of expertise, or of experience that I've had in the last 6 years. Aside from being at Napa State Hospital with adult mental health and learning about, you know, schizophrenia, bipolar, learning all the
Yeah. Yeah.
deeper parts of mental health. Well, it's like, how did
Yeah.
they get there? And that's
Right.
actually one of the reasons I decided to get into youth ministry and get into something else with youth, because I was like reading a lot of these charts, and I was like, it all started because of things that were happening at a young age.
Yeah.
So
Right.
what if we could be there and say something or do something or provide an experience where when they're at that fork in the road, they know, like I said to myself at my confirmation retreat, they say to themselves, there's a better way.
Mm-hmm.
So when I look at adult mental health, from Napa State Hospital, and this is a hospital where it's the last stop. Like these individuals, the patients there, they're admitted, they're locked in, they're not. It's
Yeah.
not like county or local hospital psych ward. This is lockdown city, bro. So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
what if we could try to get them and reach them younger, and at least expose them to something that could potentially make them think, oh, maybe there's something better there. Maybe I don't have to lash out this way, use
Mm-hmm.
this, drink this, smoke this, do this, whatever, which eventually led to these chemical imbalances, anxiety, depression. I mean, you see it everywhere now.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I think that's super necessary, super needed, to kind of dive into that part of ministry. I mean, it's like understanding the human person is something that I feel has gone unnoticed and unrecognized for too long when it comes to the ministry side of things. I think our church is just catching up to this idea as of the past 15 years. Which is understanding through the technology and advances we have in in medical and therapy and all this stuff. So it's really it's good that we were keeping up with it. And I know it's become more of a more light has been shown onto this side of ministry and how to do this stuff, and it's really good, and it's nice to be able to be there alongside these teens. Like, I'm a youth minister, as you guys know, and so is Steve, and being able to be there with these kids, especially when you've gained this like their trust and this build this relationship with them, to kind of be able to guide them and kind of see their progress, where they're no longer asking for our advice, but they're still making the right decision, you know. And it's irreplaceable. um
Yeah,
and the next
absolutely,
question we
bro.
have for you,
And yeah, so
did you
that's
have
that's
anything to add?
Me?
Oh no, no, I was just gonna say, and what ended up happening, because I did the youth ministry. I'm still doing youth ministry work, or work in ministry with youth, speaking and that, and then I have the social emotional learning side, where I facilitate still at public schools, elementary school, middle school, and then I had the opportunity last year with the Diocese of Oakland to work with 7 private Catholic schools, and we put the two together. So I took the SEL tools that I was learning in mental health with kids, and I was taking the ministry experience that I had, faith-based solutions, and created my own, or not even my own, but created a program that addressed mental health, that addressed social emotional learning, but
That's
also
awesome.
brought
Wow.
in the aspects of the faith to be part of those solutions. Because I was the only hard part in, that's still kind of the hard part in the public schools, because of course we can't talk about religion or faith, which is totally understandable. But what if we had a space where we could do that, just because that's how I grew up, that's what I leaned on when I was going through my go through. So I'm super excited to see what God does with it next. Not just for youth either, but for adults, for fellow peers. So
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So, I got another question for you here. In this time of like kind of figuring this out, I know it's probably a long process and maybe have some failures and some hiccups on our own, but what was your biggest one and what did you learn from it?
I'm sorry, can you say the question one more time?
So during the time of like building this ministry and this process, you probably had some failures here and there, but what was your biggest failure, and what did you learn from it?
Yeah, so I will say my biggest failure, and I'm going to say this is more of, well, and again, this is just kind of how I categorize it, but my biggest failure was just not believing in the gifts that God blessed me with. And I say this because there's a lot of times where I'm having meetings with diocesan leaders, with principals, with admin, with the decision makers, and would find myself trying to like code switch or talk a different way, or, and again, there's you have to know your environment and be appropriate, but you could still be authentically you in that. And so some of the biggest failures that I had was saying things or talking a certain way to deliver something that really wasn't what I, am focusing on, but just doing it to try to get the opportunity. Right. Not that I was lying,
Yeah.
right, per se, like that was never, that's not who I am. But, sometimes I find myself not being authentically me in my conversations, and failing, because now here I am, I have to, I'm hired to do this work, and here are the deliverables. And if I'm not prepared, or if that's not necessarily my lane, and if that's not where my gift really illuminates the best, then I'm failing, right? I'm failing the folks who show up, I'm failing myself, and then ultimately I'm failing God, right? That's kind of
Right.
how I so I just say the biggest failure is just times where I know I'm not being 100% me, right? Meaning there's still room to grow. You still, like, I'm still, like, right now I'm currently pursuing my theology degree with the Franciscan University of
Let's
Steubenville,
go.
and that's more just for personal. Yeah, people were like, why are you doing, why are you getting your theology degree? I was like, well, I dropped out of college and I'm dropping back in, but it's not for a job. The degree I know will definitely advance me or help me out, but ultimately the degree is just more for my own personal spiritual growth. I just love theology. I love the classes, I love the conversations, I love the way I'm being stretched, the way I'm growing in faith in the conversations that I can contribute to. Like,
Yeah.
first and foremost, that's the only reason I'm really pursuing it. But I also understand that, you know, as we grow and when we meet with people, if you're if you're in this ministry or if this is kind of your work, like, yeah, you know, there is times where you have to be credible and have credibility. But I think for me, the biggest failure was trying to lean on credibility that wasn't really credibility, and then not seeing it in my unauthentic self, which, you know, I look back at some of the meetings and some of the ways that I showed up. I was like, bruh, you was 42 fake like that, like that. You know, like fish head stew. Like, I mean, these are the reasons why I want to be in ministry, so I can be 100% me, but still be authentic, still be credible, still provide value, and not sound like or be like everyone else or what people expect me to be. And that's where, you know, I fell short. That's what my biggest failures have been in this work, in my experience.
That's awesome. I think that's valuable for everybody to kind of, wherever you are, whatever field you're in, if you want to be successful, I think it's important to be true to who you are, true to who Christ made you to be, and do it well. So, see if you got anything to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's so important to kind of realize and recognize, and of course I'm saying realize using your, you know, your own lingo. It's so important to understand that you are unique and unrepeatable, and, you know, the world has a difference because of your presence. So that's incredible, and that's amazing. And in understanding that we are unique, that we are individuals, a lot of people look up to others and they say, you know, I want to be like this person. I want to do what they do. But for a younger person who sees where you're at and what you're doing, you know, what advice would you give to that person, you know, wanting to pursue a career similar to yours? That's like, Bro Rhy is doing it, I want to do it, but their journey is going to be so different. But what advice would you offer for somebody who wanted to kind of dive into ministry?
All right, so we're going to take a break before we answer that question, and we'll be right back. If you did not know, Living Ardently is now an affiliate with Be a Heart Design. Be a Heart has a bunch of great things for you and your family. So if you want to go get something, use our affiliate link in our show notes, and then you can use our promo code Ardently10 for 10% off your purchase. Everything that we make goes straight back into our podcast, so you'll be supporting our ministry. Again, so if you want to get something nice for yourself, for your friends, or your family, go to Be a Heart using our affiliate link. Use our promo code Ardently10 for 10% off. And not only will you be helping the ministry here at Living Ardently, but you'll be getting something cool too. Again, link in the show notes, Ardently10. Let's get back to it. All right, welcome in, y'all. Nandito kami kasama ni Bro Rhy, the inspiration guy. Kumusta? How are you all doing? I want you to respond to me in Tagalog.
Ooh, get that good Tagalog going. Yes. Mabuti po. Pare.
Mabuti po. Pare. As if for all of those Filipinos out there, that's all we got.
Mabuti pare. Yeah, for us. Hey, real quick, I was in Georgia yesterday. I was telling Steve yesterday, I was in Georgia at a gas station, and I seen a elderly couple pull up in a van, had the Filipino flag from the from the mirror, the rear view mirror, and the OG came out, and he was before me opened the door. I was at a Quick Trip. He opened the door, and I was like, "Oh, salamat po, maraming salamat po." He looked at me like, "What?" And he goes, "Marunong ko Tagalog." I was like, "Konti lang ho," and he was just like caught off guard, bro. And then he told his wife, and him and his wife were in the car at the gas station, just waving like this at me and you know, me and Danielle as we were driving by, and I was just like, because they were just like caught off guard. You know what I'm saying? They're like, this dude right here.
Oh my gosh.
So,
I love doing it to the Filipinos at our parish. Whenever they come up and they say hi, and like I'll go just speak to them Tagalog, just like, "Oh, you can speak Tagalog," because my kids never speak Tagalog. I was like, "Oh, Filipino ka ba? Oh, Tagalog, opo. Konti lang, pero you know, they'd be like, "But weren't you born here?" Ayo, sa Balejo pa, and they're like, "But you know Tagalog." I'm like, "Konti lang ha." And then mabuti yan, mabuti.
If you don't know at least parts of your language, you lose so much of your culture.
Yeah.
You know,
So I learned off by just watching
sorry
the
about that.
Filipino television, and we had the Filipino channel on, and we just watched it, and that's how I picked it up.
Dude, what ala mo kaya? Is that what you've been
Oh
watching?
man,
Sorry, Steve. My bad. We're sidetracked.
Steve,
All right,
No,
here we
Steve's in the
go.
dust.
That's all right because listen, I'm Cuban and Italian, so I know more Spanish than Italian, but I know the Italian bad words. But when it comes to speaking Spanish, I can hang a little bit. But yeah, you guys got me beat on speaking languages because Tagalog. All I know, the first time I heard someone say like "Cómo estás?" I was like, "You speak Spanish?" Like, no, it's Tagalog. I said, I don't know what you're saying, but I'm okay.
It's like it's so close. Like you feel like you should know it,
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but
it
you
is.
don't. It's just a little bit different. It's kind of the same. Like some people say with was it Portuguese, like Spanish speakers?
Yeah.
Like, it's like it's so close. Like, but I can't understand it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
ahorita tenemos una pregunta por Bro Rhy, el hombre de inspiración. I think I said that correctly. So right now we got a
man. Rate
question for
our-
Bro Rhy.
All right.
Yeah. So let's go back to the question we had in the beginning before the break. You want to repose that question?
Yeah, so I'll shoot the question right back. And just, we were talking about, a lot of young people look up to others. And I know that there's tons of young people who look up to you, Bro Rhy, and they see what you do and they're inspired and they want to kind of see how they can live out that reality of, the way you reach out to people. So what advice would you give to someone who is looking to pursue a career similar to yours?
Yeah, and I think, bro, you said it earlier, right? Unique and unrepeatable. It's actually a part of a workshop that I do, and this is, Catholic social teaching here. Look at the doctrine, paragraph 131, Imago Dei. Yes, Imago Dei, made in the image and likeness of God, and it says there in the paragraph, in the doctrine, man exists as unique and unrepeatable. So here's my message for you, that all of our audience, those of you watching or listening right now, and you aspire to share your message with the world. Number one, remember that your message is your message, right? Your message is your message. So here's the thing. There will never be another you. There will never be another flavor of you. It could be super similar to so many other people, but deliver your message in your most authentic way and let God do the rest. And I say this wholeheartedly, and I know that might sound super broad, but until you know who you are and that you have something that no one else offers, until you know that, then you're not going to go anywhere, because trying to, you, like we say, we're born an original, so don't die a copy. How many times do we try to be like other people, where it's like, I always share this idea where, we go, the thought was, oh yeah, you can't tell other people your dreams because they don't have your vision. And I believe that God gives us our own vision and our own dreams that's unique and unrepeatable. So that would be more of the internal piece of it. The second part is find someone who is doing what you're doing, and just remember, success leaves clues. Success leaves clues. So if you're seeing someone that is doing something that you aspire to do, but maybe you can do it in your own unique and unrepeatable way, follow the system, right? See what their system is, tweak it, create your system, and just trust the process. That's all I can say. Trust the process, even when the struggle is real. So hopefully, for those on the up and coming, on whatever it is you decide to do, just remembering that, because sometimes I forget that, there's something that I offer that no one else could offer. Otherwise, other people would get the gigs, or other people would get invited to the thing, right? So it's like, there's something that you have, the way you do it, the style in which you do it is going to be, again, back to living ardently. You do something way more ardently than someone else in that space. So let people see that, and don't be afraid.
Awesome. I think that's,
I think,
go ahead, Adrian,
ahead.
you get it.
I was just going to say, I think it's really important for people to kind of like get to that point of like understanding our uniqueness and appreciating it. I think we can get to this sense of false humility, where we're really just self-deprecating at times, where it's like, oh no, I'm not anything, it's like, it's one side of be humility, but then there's like a line you cross when you deny like how awesome and beautiful and wonderful you are. And once you start venturing into that realm, it's kind of it's sinful, in a way. and we don't want to like deny what
Yeah, it's
goodness
like
God has put in our life.
exactly. That's like, saying, God, thank you for this awesome gift that's going to glorify you, but not today.
Hmm.
Right. That's
Right.
like, yeah,
I'm just a little
that's just,
tired, God.
bro, I can't
Listen,
even.
you want me to speak, but I'd rather just not.
Not. What were you gonna say, Steve? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was gonna wholeheartedly agree. I think it's so cool how you mentioned that. There's clues with success, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what makes the next variations and the next models of things more intriguing. But those models had a guide, they had a blueprint, but it was walking through the blueprint that they said, okay, I can tweak this, I can tweak that. So as a person's following the steps to success, they're able to kind of see where they fit in that and say, here's how I would do it. Here's how I would go about it. And they might have different connections and relationships with other people that that person didn't have. And so it might springboard them into a whole different area, in a different space, different career, different level of success, or what their idea of success is. Because if they say, oh, I wanted to be like him and I didn't get there, therefore I am not successful, they took that step each day to try to meet that goal. And just making that step in itself is a success.
Yeah, it's so true. I think that with to kind of bounce off this idea that we're talking about here, where we're talking about people like finding people's success and hoping to get there some mentorship from them, and you get influenced by these great people. And so what are for you, bro Rhy, in your time of coming up, who are the three people who have had the most influence on you?
Straight up. So let me start with, of course, the person I shared in the story earlier, Chuck Durley, rest in peace. He just passed away 2 years ago, and he was again just someone who not only got my attention in the classroom on Sunday, but he was he shepherded me in a way, and he guided me in a way where, because of him, my first ministry in the church was hospitality. He was head of hospitality. He said, hey, why don't you try this out? So I was, greeting people at the door, doing the collection, handing out the bulletins at the end. And because of him, like, I found this joy to just get out, get uncomfortable to be in front of people at church, which, is even weird to say that, right? Because we should all be comfortable at church, but being the welcoming and being the greeter and the thanking them for coming was because of him, like his leadership and his role model, because we did it together. And then another ministry we did together was the Lazarus ministry.
Oh.
So imagine I'm 18 years old. And for those of you who don't know what Lazarus ministry, this is the life after, the when someone passes away, helping with the arrangements with the church and the funeral home, that whole process. Churches have ministries like Lazarus ministry to help out with that. So I signed up for that. And we had our, as soon as I signed up, Chuck was like, all right, we got to go. And so I rolled, guys, sitting shotgun. We're going to the funeral home, met with the family member of the deceased person. And there's this whole, ministry and way that we do things in terms of setting up the rosary, the prayer, the funeral. So I'm learning all this. And then the night before the funeral, there was a viewing and the rosary. And if you can't find any family members that would like to lead the rosary, or any volunteers, then the Lazarus ministry is in charge of that. So here I was, 18 years old, suited and booted, right? Appropriate. But people in the pews or at, in the viewing, they were peers of mine, people who I knew from school. Yeah. And so imagine leading the rosary for the first time doing this ministry. And I was sweating, I did my thing or did God's thing. And afterwards, some of my friends came up to me who I knew, and they were like, thank you for doing that for my grandma. Right. So that was something that Chuck impressed on me in terms of service. A couple sayings that I live by that he shared with me is speak life, not death. Those were actually the last words he said to me the last time we saw each other. And I didn't even know we're at ministry days. And it's a big diocesan event where we just, help with all the other ministers. And I was a speaker there, and he saw me, we saw each other, we were having lunch, and he goes like, this was one of my students and I'm so proud of him. He was just sharing his acknowledgments for me. And, the last thing he said to me was, hey, remember, speak life, not death. And that was it, you know. And then after that, another saying he always said to me was, no matter how bad you think you got it, there's always someone that got it worse.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So he had an impact in my life because as a teen, he played a second father figure to me when me and my stepdad weren't seeing eye to eye. He brought me in, like, imagine I was with him and his family on December 24th on Christmas Eve for, you know, Christmas Mass. Like, that's how close we were. And even after Mass, I broke bread with him. So number one, him was Chuck Durley. Number two, confirmation teacher, Annabelle Fontius, another, you know, God rest her soul. She passed away, I think 31, 32 years old of an aneurysm after having her second baby in the hospital. John Muir in Concord. We were there. All of us were there. Like, are you serious? You know, I'm a young adult. And I just remember her funeral mass having so many people there, more than even like midnight mass. And she ran her first retreat at 16. Her husband pulled me aside and said, you know, Bro Rhy, I just want to let you know, like, Annabelle, you know, she always talked about you. You were always her favorite. And I was like, what favorite? What do you mean? And she was like, yeah, because she's seen the change in you from who you were when you first started to where you are now in leading the youth ministry and all the things you're doing. So every Sunday I was the most difficult, problematic child in that class, and she always smiled with authenticity, always sat with me, always listened to me, always helped me out after, checked in with me and what, you know, my life was about. So just her compassion and unconditional love, as a volunteer confirmation teacher who has no reason to be spending extra time with me, who has, you know, didn't have to do any of it, but her selfless, you know, her being so selfless and her like spirit of God that's so strong in her just has resonated with me ever since. So she taught me, her and her husband taught me the yes clap, which is a 2 stomps, 2 claps, and a yes. And I teach that at all the confirmation retreats that I do, because it was my yes to the best, my yes to Christ that changed my life. So Annabelle's number 2, faith-wise. And someone more current, I would just say, just to kind of mix it up, is Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher. He is himself. He is authentically him. I've followed his career from starting to end, you know, and just seeing how his, you know, motivational speaking career has grown. But he is a believer. He does a lot of spiritual development. He really cares about his people and his community. So a lot of his podcasts, a lot of his programs that I've taken, that I've invested in, have been so personal, where every time I reference him as my mentor, even though we've never met in person, he is someone who I feel like the way he talks on camera, the way we've talked on, you know, on a phone call, even though there's 1,000 of us on a phone call or on a Zoom, you know, mastermind or whatever it was, however we, you know, however I got trained by him, you just felt like he was speaking directly to you. And because he's a believer, because that's his first, you know, first and foremost, he just allowed God to illuminate his gift. So he's consistent. He has some powerful messages, entrepreneurial messages, spiritual development messages. And I love his follow-up and the way he makes sure that, like, he's not just going to fire you up and motivate you, but he's actually going to give you something to think about, something to reflect on, some action steps. And just being where he's at now in the business, working for, you know, so imagine he's working for the NBA, NFL, you know, he's up there making buku money, but this year decided to give up all of his corporate work to go back into the schools. He gave it all up. He's not doing any more corporate work because he did voiceovers, everything, Olympics, all the college teams, all that. But he said he's giving all that up to go back to where he wanted to start, which is the elementary schools. So he started a whole new program called School Days, where he's teaching young people to how to be the best versions of themselves. And he's going for a Nobel Prize. Like, that's where he's at, like, in terms of how far he's wanted to go. And he's doing it in a secular world, but also very, you know, intentional faith-wise. So I really aspire to, you know, have that same or similar type of drive, but with my own Bro Rhy unique flavor. So yeah, Eric Thomas, the hip hop, E.T. the hip hop preacher, definitely worth a listen and a follow.
Definitely. We'll put every of those 3, like, if, I mean, we'll put him in the description and of the show notes and stuff, so you can follow him if you want to go check out his stuff. Where can the followers find your stuff? You're on Instagram on the we said it earlier at Bro Rhy _ the inspiration guy. But where else are you? I know I think you have a YouTube as well.
Yeah. So so I have a YouTube. I mean, if you just go to RhyanRamirez.com, you'll see my website there, and it has all of my links to the social media, the email opt-ins. I am revamping it for 21, so there's going to be a lot more content, a lot more links, the future podcasting. But YouTube, if you just Google Rhyan, Rhyan Ramirez, Ramirez, not to sound, not to sound funny like that, but in the Google search, you'll find all the different platforms. But YouTube, Bro Rhy, the inspiration guy, Twitter, which I don't really use too much, but it's Bro _ Rhy, Rhy, and Instagram. So I'm more active on Instagram for the most part, and YouTube. And again, new content is coming out where, again, it's really about providing value for people to really take and do something with it. Like motivation, inspiration is not enough. We got to take action. So.
Amen. So all of that will be in the show notes again. Thank you, Bro Rhy. We wanted to play a game, but we kind of running out of time today. We got both of us got kind of a cutoff time. So we'll have to have you come back on to do some of these games and just have a fun time. Okay. So this won't be the last you're here.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Awesome.
Much appreciated, brother. Yeah, we can do
say?
like a Freestyle Friday. So
For sure.
Freestyle Friday. We've done that before. We'll do it again.
Oh, yeah. No,
the last time we did it was with Steve.
Yeah. Just want to say thanks, Bro Rhy, for being here with us and sharing your inspiration. And I'm sure that the listeners will be able to hear your passion and your authenticity in who you are and your story. So, God bless you in your ministry and with everything going on in your life. We pray for you, for Danielle, and for the peace that you need, for the clarity to see where God is continuing to move you in your ministry. So thank you so much.
Amen. So again, everything you need to know if you want to follow. Sorry, go ahead.
My bad. If you can cut this in, last inspiration, I got to add a fourth just because when Steve said that prayer and thanks. Number 4, my daughter, Briagene. She is 23 years old and is in California while we're here in South Carolina. And she, in the underneath everything that I do in terms of inspiration, you talk about a why. She's that for me. So just want to be clear. I just want to make sure that I share that my daughter who I've learned from so much, I've grown with, as a father, and I'm still learning, still growing, still trusting the process. But Briagene, yes, and she goes by Aja for short. So if you've seen her on any of my socials, definitely a huge inspiration to me, and I'm so proud of everything that she's doing. Everything she's doing, so much that's happened in the last couple weeks. Some moves that she's making on her own, and as a parent, that's inspiring to me because she's doing it on her own. So hopefully we can add that in.
Yeah, definitely. I'll add it in there. And, again, we've only scratched the tip of the iceberg with Bro Rhy. There's so much more to his story, to what he does. He has a whole transformation from being 300 some pounds to where you are now. And it's like inspiring for myself, for someone who's always struggled with weight and like wanting to lose it. So it's a lot to his story and a lot to his, mission. So go and check out his YouTube, his personal stuff, like his Instagram. I guarantee you won't regret taking the time to go check out his content. Again, follow us at Living Ardently. Follow myself at It's Only Adrian. You can follow Steve at his platforms at The Bosco Beats and Agino. Agino Media?
Agino.media.
And Agino.media. That'll all again be in the show notes below. And if you guys have any questions or want to continue the conversation with Bro Rhy, again, go to his Instagram. I'm sure he would love to chop it up with you. And if you want to have him back onto the show, let us know. We'll make sure to make that happen this year. But God bless you all for listening. Hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed to our YouTube channel. Like and review on our podcast. Do all that good stuff. Subscribe. It's all great. And we're going to continue to bring you good content every week, podcasts, social media, IGTVs. Hopefully continue to grow and evolve to better suit you all and better help you all become and live ardently. So God bless you guys. Thanks again. And last words from any of you?
Yes,
All right,
yes.
thanks.
God bless y'all. Thank you.
All right, God bless y'all. Take care, and until next week, keep living ardently.
Peace.